I want to bring up this screenshot. This is an image that has been circulating throughout social media, and it's basically this.
I'm glad you put this up.
This timeline. You guys tell me what you see.
This is definitely not planned out. They don't know that, all this information is coming out. And while they know this information is starting to be formulated and coming out, they're surely not building this case against Trump to have something to hit with the media immediately after. I mean, they wouldn't do that.
This is a really dangerous road to go down, man. This is third world banana republic stuff, right? And so all the things, what's ironic about all this is all the people who were hysterical when Trump got elected in 2016, all the things they claimed he was going to do, this administration, the Biden administration,
they're doing
it all.
What is up, guys? It's Andy Frisella, and this is the show for the realists. Say goodbye to the lies, the fakeness, and delusions of modern society. And welcome to motherfucking reality, guys. Today, we have Andy and DJ
cruise the motherfucking internet.
That's what we're going to do. We're going to cruise the internet. If this is your first time listening, and we have a special guest, I'm going to introduce you in just a second. If it's your first time listening, this is CTI. This is where we put up current event topics on the screen. We speculate on what's true, on what may not be true, and then we talk about how we as individuals can work to fix some of the problems going on in society. Other times you tune in, we have Q&AF. That's where you could submit questions and we give you the answers. Most of those questions have to do with entrepreneurship, personal development, but they can also be about anything else you want to talk about too. You can submit those questions one of a couple different ways. The first way is,
guys, you can handwrite those letters and send them in and mail them straight here.
With checks, right?
Yeah.
To DJ?
Yeah. You can also just email them in too. You can email them in to askandy@andyfrisella.com.
So we have a special guest, United States Senator and a good buddy of mine, Mr. Eric Schmitt. What's happening, bro?
Man, it is good to be here.
It's great to have you on the show.
First time, long time.
Yeah. It's long overdue. It's long overdue. We tried to get this together a couple times, but I mean, we're both kind of doing stuff.
Yeah, I'm about to say, it's kind of like, I mean, shit, he's doing a little something,
you
know?
No, I'm glad it worked out, man. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So I got to ask you first and foremost, you were the Attorney General of Missouri. You did a great job when you were here. What's it like being a senator now? It's pretty crazy. It's a historic thing, man.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. No, it's wild. And, the swearing in was in early January, and my parents were both alive, came up along with a lot of my family. And for most everybody in my family, it was like the first time they were ever in Washington, D.C. And I had only been in the Capitol like once or twice my whole life.
Yeah.
So, I grew up in Bridgeton, not too far from here, man, in a really blue collar part of town. And my dad worked midnights and 7 days a week. And that's not typically the people who are in the United States Senate. Mm-hmm. A lot of them are, Harvard, Yale, all that kind of stuff. So it's humbling, it's an important spot. And I'm not sure I ever thought that's where I would be.
Yeah.
But I just try to keep in mind the people here, that you're fighting for. Because DC can be this sort of, the stuff they talk about there is not the same stuff you talk about when you're here. Mm-hmm. So you try to bring that perspective there. But it's great, man. It's an honor of a lifetime to fight for the things that we believe in. You and I have talked about this stuff a lot.
Yeah.
And to try to bring that fight to Washington is something that definitely motivates me. It's why I did it. It's why I'm doing it. And but it's been great. So far, so good.
That's cool, man.
And working on some good stuff. You know?
I know you are. Let's talk about a couple of those things that you've been working on. Now, you did something pretty significant just today regarding censorship and social media. Is that topic number one?
Oh, that's topic number one.
Oh, okay. We're going to move right into it.
Let's get into it then.
All right. We'll just go right into it.
Headline number one, guys.
All right.
Yeah. GOP lawmakers introduced bill allowing federal officials to be sued for censorship right on our own backyard, man. Doing the good work. So this article reads, Senator Eric Schmitt.
That's you.
That's me.
That's him.
You.
He's right here. That's me. Holy shit. And Representative Dan Bishop out of North Carolina, they introduced legislation that would allow citizens to hold officials accountable if they attempt to censor online speech. The latest push from conservatives to protect free speech online. The Censorship Accountability Act, introduced in both chambers of Congress, would permit lawsuits against federal executive branch officials believed to be participating in censorship for damages. In his previous role as Missouri's Attorney General, Schmitt filed a lawsuit alleging the federal government overstepped in its efforts to control how social media companies addressed posts about COVID-19 during the pandemic, including the efficacy of vaccines and the lab leak origin theory. The lawsuit has led to a preliminary injunction announced last month that blocks almost all contact between Biden administration officials and social media companies, with exceptions for matters related to criminal activity and national security. Following the ruling, Schmitt sent letters to Biden and 18 other administration officials reminding them why they were barred from contacting social media companies and seeking further information. The letters ask for confirmation that the officials are committed to protecting free speech, a list of steps being taken to ensure compliance with the court's orders, all communications with big tech firms over the last year that could lead to censorship, a list of any non-governmental partner entities engaged in the effort, and steps being taken to instill confidence in the federal government going forward. That's a lot there. That's a really, really, really big deal. And it comes at this weird time. And like, you know, we talked about the Twitter files here on the show multiple times. We looked at that, but now it's coming out, and we've been kind of like, you know, alluding to it. Facebook files, right? Like, where are they at? We know they got to come sometime. And now that stuff is starting to roll out. Like this headline from Breitbart reading, Biden White House wanted Facebook to change the algorithm, boost New York Times content over right-wing media. Jim Jordan, he's been on a big push of this, kind of leading this Facebook files portion. But he's releasing all these different type of emails and communications between White House officials and social media big tech firms. Like this one came from April 14th. It says, quote, Rob, if you were to change the algorithm so that people were more likely to see New York Times, Wall Street Journal, any authoritative news source over Daily Wire, Tommy Lauren, polarizing people, you wouldn't have a mechanism to check the material impact.
I think they're talking about us. There.
No, that's us for sure. That's why I highlighted that.
Yeah.
I highlighted that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's us.
Yeah. All right. Congrats.
But I mean, even going to the stuff about Facebook, about COVID. So like this was another, I guess, release from the Facebook files. This was an email. It says, Mark, Cheryl, quote, we are seeking your guidance on whether to take more aggressive action against certain vaccine discouraging content. The important piece here is saying, quote, we are facing continued pressure from external stakeholders, including the White House and the press, to remove more COVID-19 vaccine discouraging content. And it goes on. So we got all of this going on. I guess let's start with the Censorship Accountability Act. Where are we at with that?
So I think it's important to like take a step back and realize how all this started. So when I was AG last year, well over a year ago now, we filed this Missouri versus Biden lawsuit, which is, and you mentioned in the headlines, there was a judge issued the order basically stopping them from this activity they've had with social media giants to censor speech. So when we filed it, a lot of people, of course, were like, oh, this is ridiculous. It's frivolous. It's conspiracy theory stuff.
Right.
And all its stuff has been proven to be true. Like all the allegations proven to be true. And it came at the time, if you guys remember, when the government literally had started a disinformation governance board. I mean, this is like Orwellian stuff where the government's going to decide what you can hear, what you can say, what you can see. And so for me, it struck a nerve and knew that, you know, somebody had to do something about this, right? And so we filed the lawsuit. One of the things we were able to get into discovery before the judge ruled, which turned out to be huge because once we did that and you saw emails and text messages from people like the Surgeon General to Facebook officials and Twitter officials saying, take that down. They're also threatening legal action. So the government can't censor speech, right? That's what the First Amendment's all about. But they also can't outsource that speech to big tech giants. I mean, some of the biggest companies in the history of the world. So if you think about it, if you're somebody that wants to express a point of view that isn't the regime's narrative, right? What chance do you really have against the big bad federal government and then some of the biggest companies, you know, in the history of the world, right? And so we wanted to go to bat for the First Amendment and people who had been censored. And I think for me, the First Amendment is just fundamental, right? It's the idea. Here's what the founders knew. The founders knew that most people in the world, and still to this day, resolve differences through violence, right? But they devised a system where there's pressure release valve, right? Where you have your show and somebody can else have another show and somebody can listen to what they want to listen to or say what they want to say in the town square or now the virtual town square. It's sort of like this beating heart of the Constitution, right? It kind of gives life to the Republic. And if you start to narrow the bandwidth of what people can see or what they can say, that leads to a lot of frustration. So if you want to understand a lot of the frustration that's out there, and I've run statewide in Missouri 3 times in 6 years, you get around, that's a lot of it, right? They feel like, hey, wait a minute. I don't need to be looked down upon by these people 1,000 miles away for what I believe or what I want to hear or some, I don't think masks are effective. By the way, they're not.
Yeah.
But like, if you say the truth,
Right.
right? Nobody's punished for like saying wrong stuff, but they get punished for saying the truth. And it's terrifying to these people who want to control what you say. So we filed the lawsuit. The stuff came out. Twitter files happens after that. And then, of course, you've got these hearings. So today we filed the Censorship Accountability Act. So right now we've got that lawsuit. You can stop it. But what's the real penalty, right? Like, what is the hammer on the back end? So what this would be, individuals can sue individual government officials in the administrative state for their First Amendment rights being violated. And all of that is meant to deter these people who, by the way, nobody's ever heard of. Most of these people, you hear of Fauci, but there's all these agencies like CISA. Who knows what CISA is? Nobody knows what CISA is. But these people were in charge of monitoring your speech. And then they'd try to get around it. They'd have Stanford or the University of Washington do it for them. And then they'd get on the phone or they'd get on email and they'd have weekly censorship meetings to shut people down. Like millions of posts, hundreds of thousands of Americans, not just the famous ones of, right? But just regular people who have a point of view.
Those people might be famous if they hadn't been censored.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just think people ought to be able to make their own decisions, right? Like take it in. It was when I was suing school district for masks, that was the point of view. It was like, let parents decide what they want to do. They can decide if this is helpful or not. They can judge it, but you get this kind of mindset where they want to control things. And whatever it is inside of me, maybe it's being a Missourian or whatever it is, or how I grew up and kind of a contrarian, man, I don't, you give everybody the information, they can make their own decisions. And by the way, people can say what they want to say, even if I disagree with it.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like, you fight speech you don't agree with more speech, not censorship. And I think that's getting lost in all this.
Yeah, for sure, dude. We've lost because the censorship didn't just start during COVID. That's what people have to understand. When you take free speech, okay, the open society dialogue that happens amongst human beings, and then you create social media, okay? And this happened around, 2000, the 2000s, we'll just say. And now you take what's the speech that was happening out in public and you put it on this online forum. And that online forum grows and grows and grows and grows, where it does become the actual town square of where ideas are communicated about. And the censorship starts with their algorithms. Right? There is no free traffic on the internet anymore. And it hasn't been way before COVID. Part of the reason I started my Andygram, which is an email list, was because I was being censored for profanity. All right.
Shocking.
Yeah. Like if you would say something, a 4-letter word, they would take your traffic down. And then it got really noticeable to everybody else, during COVID. But the question should be asked, because there's a number of points that are being brought up with this discussion. The question that I think should be asked is, do these people even have the right to delegate where the attention goes in any way, shape, or form inside their own platform if this serves as the public square?
Right. So that's a great point. So what I was just talking about was sort of government actors. Then you deal with what are the private players? What's their role, right? And so I've got another bill called the Collude Act that basically says, if you're engaged in this kind of censorship, you lose your Section 230 protections. What is that, right? Yeah. That means you can't get sued. Like Facebook can't get sued right now. Twitter or X can't get sued right now. I love what Elon Musk is doing, but like they're shielded because when that law went into effect in 1996, the idea was the internet was kind of emerging, right? That this is an open platform. It's different than an organization like a news organization that can get sued for libel or whatever, right? And so you got to kind of pick a team here. Like if you're a social media company, you want to fall into that category, right? You start altering your algorithm, or you start making editorial decisions on content, right? Like then you don't get those legal
You're not
protections,
an open
right?
platform anymore.
So we ought to take that away. So I think it's a 1-2 punch, right? You deal with the government side, you deal with the private side. But you're right, and you've been talking about this for a while. COVID to me, so people talk about power corrupting. Power reveals, right?
Yeah.
So what COVID did is it put enormous power in the hands of people who should have never had it in the first place, and it revealed what their true intentions are. And by the way, it gave a playbook. Like it's not just COVID. You look what's happening now with climate alarmism. The idea is declare an emergency, right? Start telling people, and because of that, then you have these emergency executive orders. So it bypasses all this stuff that where people are supposed to have a say, and then all of a sudden, you're not allowed to do X, Y, and Z, right?
Yeah.
And that's the problem. And that's why I think this fight's so important. It's not just COVID. And I was in the middle of all that stuff. We sued on the vaccine mandate. Missouri did. We won at the Supreme Court, right? We sued on the Head Start trying to force vaccinations and masks on kids. We took that to the Supreme Court, or we took that to court and won. We've got this Missouri versus Biden. So you look at the tail of the tape there, man, like pushing back against all this stuff, because I just really believe like there's nothing new under the sun. This stuff has been done by every tyrant since the beginning of time to aggregate power and exercise it on people who don't have that power. And we have to push back against that in this country because there's nowhere else to go. Like America is this kind of last best hope. So we got to hold on to this. And the First Amendment's like right in the middle of the fight.
Yeah, dude, people don't, like, you guys who listen, you don't realize, like, if it wasn't for the suits that Eric put through, things would have been a lot different right now for all of us.
Well, and dude, like I applaud you too, because he could have very well did what many other AGs at the time did in other states, even red states, where they just kind of,
yeah, it's easy. Look, it's easy just to go to like these ribbon cuttings and do whatever.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of that. That is not why I decided to do this. Like, I think you got to want to do something. You got to want to try to protect something. So for me, like as much power is, because people want to be in these positions and continue to aggregate it. Me, it's just like, man, get it back to the people so people can live their lives and pursue their dreams, whatever that is, right? Whatever that is. And I'm not going to tell them what to do, but they get to do it.
You touched on something that I think is important to note, which was the national emergency. And DJ, if you click back on a few of these slides that we talked about, not that one, right here, that one. If you read the last sentence here, it says, the lawsuit has led to a preliminary injunction announced last month that blocks almost all contact between Biden administration officials and social media companies, with exceptions for matters related to criminal activity and national security. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but this is why they keep trying to claim all these emergencies.
Yep.
So that they can circumvent these rules.
Well, think about it. Congress is one of my first votes to say that the COVID emergency is over. That was in January of 2023, right?
Yeah.
You're right. The reason why they hold on to this stuff is because there's different powers granted. Now, look, if you're like Pearl Harbor happens, right?
Yeah.
Like there are certain things that need to happen when you're like going to war.
Right.
The problem is a lot of these people try to put this stuff into that box so they can get away with it.
Yeah.
And you mark my words, I said this 3 years ago. The next thing will be, you want to know why they're talking about
climate lockdown.
Yep.
No,
and you want to know why they're talking
Schwab's
about
daughter said it 2 days ago. She said there's going to be climate lockdowns, whether you well, this is her exact quote. There are going to be climate lockdowns, whether you people like it or not.
Yeah, because they know better, right?
Yeah.
We're in California, you're not going to have gas-powered vehicles in 5 years. Meanwhile, they don't have enough power to charge the electric vehicles that are there like right now. This stuff it's totally insane.
Yeah.
It's totally insane. And so I do think, though, that like you guys have lent a voice to this. People are waking up to this. They see it. It's a playbook that's been tried before, just not at the level it's being played here in the United States.
What do you think the reason for that is? Because you know what I think, man. I think they're trying to destroy the whole entire world intentionally, especially America.
Well, I think that there is this, look at DEI, right? Or CRT, all this stuff. It's super divisive.
Yeah.
It's super divisive. And it's based in this Marxist ideology, right? Where you separate, like you and I go out, we'll find all kinds of things we have in common, but that's not what this ideology is all about, right? Like even the military now. So I'm on the Armed Services Committee. A lot of the questions I ask some of these political appointees who want to push this divisive diversity, equity, inclusion stuff is, it's essentially racial quotas. It's these struggle sessions, and it is divisive. Like think about the military. These guys, man, are willing to put their lives on the line. They wear uniforms, same haircuts. All of that is built, meant to build cohesion. not divide.
Mhm.
And but you see right now from the left, man, they want to infuse this into our schools. They want to infuse this into our military. And it's all about sort of indoctrination, because if you can create that kind of division, if you can create that kind of demoralizing view, that's the only way they can ever sort of have a foothold in this country, where we kind of fundamentally in our DNA believe that people should be free. That's kind
When
of
you say they, you mean the communists?
Yeah.
All right, good.
Yeah. No, it didn't work. Like it didn't work.
It's never going to work.
It didn't work with economic policy, right? Like it failed, and people saw it. But if you can infuse it now into race or something like that, right? If it's new, that's the game plan.
Yeah.
And if people are being honest, that's what they'll just call it out. And one of the reasons I think why you and I have built such a strong relationship is I don't care, man. Like this, I care about this country.
Yeah.
And if
call us whatever you want.
Yeah. And if I'm up, I'm up in 6 years, if people don't think like they'll vote for me or vote against me.
Yeah.
But man, we got a country to save.
Yeah.
And I mean that. Like we got a country to save where it's the last best hope, man, where people can pursue their dreams. I don't want to be like Europe. Like, want to see the blueprint, look at Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, that they're completely like energy dependent on countries that aren't friendly to them.
Right.
They don't have the same kind of freedoms that we have in this country. And a lot of people on the left are totally fine with that, right? Because the government then replaces all the things you believe in, that God-sized hole, right, that people talk about gets filled with something.
Yeah.
And a lot of people on the left, they want it to be government.
And people don't understand too, because like you have to have something to lose to be fearful of losing it. And a lot of these people on the left, on the far progressive left, if we really break down that demographic. Now, I'm not saying that we can't have reasonable discourse with a Democrat. That's not what I'm saying. But the reality is that most of the Democrats are not aware of how far left their party has moved. And most of them are actually more conservative by today's standards anyway, if we're being real. Like most of those people agree with every single thing that I say outside of, or every single thing that like you would stand for outside of maybe the pro-life stance, right? But I think that's also changing. I think people are waking up to how that's affected culture and society and how that's been used to legitimately, especially in the Black communities, keep the Black communities from reproducing and actually coming out.
So it's genocide.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's euthanasia is what it's been used as.
I mean, but I think a lot of people are changing. And, these people that we talk about on this far progressive left, if we really examine that demographic, those people don't have anything to lose. These are people who are not really paying into taxes. They're screaming and yelling about everything. They want what you have, but they don't want to work the way you've worked. They deserve, entitle, and scream and yell and throw temper tantrums. And because we've listened to those temper tantrums at all, now they've gained some momentum. The reality is we should look at those people just like we looked at them in generations past and be like, bro, your opinion isn't valued the same way as these other people's opinions because you're not contributing to the system.
Yeah. Well, and I think that a lot of those people, and I think people are waking up to this, that on the left, man, they've been super involved in a lot of these cultural institutes, whether it's universities or these bureaucratic positions or in, school administrators, whatever. They've kind of populated this,
for sure,
this kind of, force that they have. And that's why I think we got to be fully engaged and sort of push back, right? Because there's no cavalry, right? It is us.
It's us.
It's us. And you just like, look, John Kerry flying around in a private jet, telling everybody else, poor people what they can't have.
Bro,
you know what I mean?
Were you in that room? Were you in the room when they did that?
No, I wasn't.
Oh my God,
no.
Dude, we laughed so hard. Like, dude, when he's like, we
I
do
have
not
never
own a
owned.
private jet. I do not own a private jet. I don't have a private jet. He gets pushed on like 20 times. Finally, he's like, my wife owned the private jet.
I don't
We're
own
like,
it.
bro,
My wife, though.
bro.
Yeah, meanwhile, you can't have your AC on when it's 100 degrees.
Yeah, we got to get rid of our stoves. Like, dude, get the fuck out of here, man.
It's nuts.
It's insane.
The only hope is that people are seeing this. But I think what this, getting back to the headline, it's like, this has opened this thing up now.
Yeah.
If we wouldn't have filed the lawsuit and Elon Musk doesn't buy Twitter.
Yeah. Oh, it'd be totally different.
All this stuff would still be in the
We'd
dark.
be in Canada right now. You see what they did in Canada? Where they shut the news off social media?
Yeah.
Dude, Canada is getting no news on social media. None. Like, that's what we would be dealing with here.
Yeah.
We'd be dealing with anybody who had an opinion. Actually, here it would be CNN would get to say whatever they want. MSNBC get to say whatever they want, and nobody else can say it, which we're not far off of that,
Bro,
really.
CNN would be on there like, everybody's dead.
Because I was talking to Eric.
Remember they had like a death count. Like during
Bro.
COVID, it's like they had like this just
Did you see the
Everybody
shit
is
they
dead.
Did you guys see the thing they did on the high temperatures like last week? They put the same
Yeah.
ticker up there for high temperatures, dude. Like
well,
they
because here's why it hasn't worked for them. Most people understand that this is something, that's far off, and people disagree about the extent to which humans have had anything to do with controlling weather, but they got to make it like an immediate concern because it's the only way that they can kind of try to con people into this scam
Yeah.
It's also a
of giving
distraction.
up stuff that they shouldn't have to give up.
It's
Yeah.
also a distraction too.
Yeah.
But the climate stuff is fucking stupid. But I do want to ask you one more question on this bill. So what's like the line of attack on this? So like as an American citizen, right? And I feel like I've been censored. I feel like my First Amendment has been violated. And I'm going after these federal officials. Is it just what's the damages based off of?
The harm that you've realized, it could
It's
be
just-
economic.
Okay.
But I think, by the way, the other piece of this, especially since the Facebook files that came out,
Yeah.
these companies have now opened themselves up pretty dramatically. So, and it could just be them violating their own terms of service. And what the unspoken thing in all this is when we were trying to prove, like we had to prove that the government was not just colluding with, but sort of coercing, right?
Right.
That this wasn't a voluntary thing, but the media companies who would go along with voluntary, but felt some sort of real pressure. And they got them to not just take down posts, to change the terms of service, like whenever you're on one of these sites, there's a terms of service that you agree to. That's changed.
300 pages of
And then
fine
also these
print.
algorithms now, right?
Yeah.
Like pressure them to change the algorithm. So think about if you're a conservative business owner, right? And all of a sudden, you were seen and you're no longer seen.
Dude, Eric, that happens all the time.
I know.
That,
and I know
that
people
ruins, like I could tell you 5 or 6 people have had their business ruined because of that.
Yeah. And so there has to be, and part of the reason why I'm doing this is there has to be a disruptive event because these folks are too powerful. So you have to have, it can't just be one attorney general. It's an army of people who say, we're not going to allow you to censor us anymore. And that pressure, whether it's litigation or something we do in Congress, is the only thing that can bust this thing up. And that's what we got to fight for.
What about, what's your personal opinion? Like, should these social media companies even be able to curate an algorithm, or should it just be open traffic?
For me, I think if you're going to have an algorithm like that, you have to be really upfront about it, and that's the part that nobody has any idea what that is.
Because people are talking about censorship in terms of getting posts removed or getting deplatformed, but that's not really where the censoring is. The censoring is in some person behind the scene saying, I don't like DJ's content, so I'm going to turn the dial all the way down and not tell him anything of anything.
Yep.
And that happens every day, and it's been happening for a decade.
Well, I know somebody who had a business where they were, they had t-shirts, like Second Amendment related t-shirts. Was doing great. All of a sudden, you were on the naughty list or whatever the hell they'd come up with. And you can't see them anymore. And by the way, think about Google too. We're not even really talking about Google. But
Google's a worse offender.
If you're on page 10, not on page 1, of a Google search, you're irrelevant. And so when I was AG, we also filed an antitrust lawsuit against Google for that. So for me, it's, man, you got to bust this stuff up. And because they're way too powerful, they control way too much of the flow of information, and it's wrong. And by the way, it's all a lie because they claim to be this open platform, right? Where it is sort of like, hey, anybody can see anything. Where you can come post your stuff. That is not how it works. So you got the government piece of it, like we talked about, and then also you got this private piece that you have to attack, and it's going to be hard. Like these are, it's
going to take a minute.
Yeah.
What's been happening too, to your point, I don't think people realize, because the argument always is, well, it's a private business, so they can do what they want, right? But what's happened here is the federal government has outsourced the censorship. They are leaning on these creator or these entrepreneurs. Bro, listen,
we'll give you your 230 protections.
Listen, dude, this is why Zuckerberg was on Rogan saying, hey, man, the FBI fucking basically told me to do this shit.
By the way, do you know the reason I'm convinced, we had filed the lawsuit. The discovery on this stuff going back and forth was about to drop the next week. I'm convinced he goes on Rogan to get out in front of this because he knows, look, all this other stuff now is coming on the Facebook files. They knew all this stuff was going on.
Yeah.
And they know how exposed they are, know how terrible it looks.
It's going to look real bad.
And
I also think that's what the PR thing about him like being jujitsu and all this shit's about too.
Yeah.
So that he looks like he's this innocent dude who didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Yeah.
When in reality, in my opinion, these people got a little taste of power. They thought they could rule the world. They were able to for a while, and now they're not.
Well, I'll tell you this. So in that lawsuit, I took Fauci's deposition. And that's like the last thing I got to do as AG before I got sworn in. And
I remember that phone call.
it was incredible.
Like, that
and
has to be pretty imposing because he's like a tiny little dude. You're a respectable man. You know what I'm saying? Like,
we look different in the lineup. Yeah.
But he's walking, and he's like, oh shit.
But man, that place was like getting into Fort Knox, and you could tell this guy has just lived a really sheltered. It's almost like a cocoon. He's in there. They got all these lawyers from the Department of Justice there, and he's sitting there, and no shit. He, in the middle of the deposition, the court reporter sneezes and he looks at her and asks her if she has an upper respiratory infection, if she has COVID, and tells her to put a mask on. Like, this is the guy. This isn't like in March of 2020. This is in October or November of 2022. This is the guy that was, claiming to be the science. And he was that sort of like a hypochondriac about this thing.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it was a little bit of an insight into this guy, but his daughter worked at Twitter. So like these communications were happening all the time. They were taking down anything that might lead people. And they did it under this justification that everybody needs to get the vaccine or everybody needs to wear a mask. Meanwhile, Fauci in March of 2020, we uncovered this email. A friend emails him, say, hey, I know COVID's happening. I'm getting on a plane. Should I wear a mask? He's like, no, not effective. Don't worry about it.
They knew it wasn't.
They knew it wasn't.
Yeah.
But think about it. It's sort of like what happened locally here with Sam Page and others, or in other states you saw.
Guy.
Think about the power. You're a county executive that your main job is like naming streets and stuff like that. You can go up to the microphone every Monday and say, I got you. We're going to protect you. Still need to wear a mask. Be vigilant. This is the science. Yeah. There's a lot of power in that. And I think that people, I was certainly part of it. Other people were part of it. You guys were part of it. And we got to push back against that. And if people want to wear one, man, like you want to walk around Forest Park with 10 masks on your face in the summertime, God bless you. It's America. I mean, I think it's nuts.
Yeah, but I say shame them.
But like, I'm cool with people doing what they want to do, but it's not,
I don't give
it's
a fuck.
not based in anything. But think of the power they had of telling you, we know what's best, and people
brings some relevance to their miserable existence.
Yeah. So, but man, it was
Fauci's on the cover of like Vogue and shit.
Yeah, he's giving commencement addresses. These Fauci
next to
candles
a pool
is a
in
joke.
a suit.
Yeah,
like, come on, man.
Yeah, they got Fauci candles. What the hell,
Fauci candles,
dude.
Man, crazy guys. Well, guys, that was headline number one. Let's keep this show moving.
Well, first of all, bro, before we get on to other things, thanks for doing this shit.
Yeah.
Because like without you doing this, people don't realize that you're a key figure in all of this stuff, and you don't get enough credit for it. Like I see a lot of these guys who are getting credit for like, Senator Cruz gets a lot of credit and TV time, and Rand Paul and like all these guys, which, I like Rand Paul, but you're not getting the credit you deserve yet. And people don't realize that you're the key figure in protecting what is essentially free speech in today's America, which is on social media platforms.
Yeah. Well, part of that's because they still probably censor them.
Huh? Right. That's right. Yeah.
Well,
guys,
thanks.
That was our first headline. Let's keep the show moving. If you guys want to join in on the conversation, #CensorThese. Let us know in the comments, guys, what you think. And also, if you have not yet, and you're still watching this on YouTube and you have not yet subscribed, click that fucking subscribe button.
Yeah. And if you're listening on audio and you haven't subscribed, just
do it
click
too.
subscribe.
Yeah.
Do us a solid.
No hoes on here.
Yeah.
All right. Let's keep it moving. We got headline number 2. Headline number 2 reads, WW3 Watch. Poland sends combat helicopters, extra troops to border after Belarus military violates airspace. Yeah. Let's dive into this. Breitbart article, guys. Reading, Poland accuses Belarus of...
Isn't Belarus where they sent...
Wagner Group.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So Poland accuses Belarus of having flown 2 helicopters into its airspace, accusing the Moscow-aligned nation of escalating tensions and responding by deploying more troops and its own helicopters to the border. 2 Belarusian helicopters flew into Polish airspace on Monday, a statement by the Ministry of Defense said, revealing the aircraft entered Polish territory at a very low altitude, flying below radar, making them, quote, difficult to detect, end quote. Locals spotted the Belarus-colored wearing helicopters flying low over their houses and posted the images to social media, reports state. The helicopters were on a training mission, which the Belarusian government had notified Poland in advance is taking place. But nevertheless, Poland said the incursion was unacceptable and summoned the Belarus ambassador. The Polish defense minister, Mariusz Błaszczak, said in a response to what the government called a provocation, he had ordered extra troops and combat helicopters to the borders. Belarus has denied that any such incursion took place. Deutsche Welle reports they called the claims, quote unquote, far-fetched, and that Poland had invented the incident to give a pretext for building up their military deployment on the border. Now, we all know the significance of Poland. There's a lot of moving pieces going on in Russia, Ukraine. 1999, Poland became a NATO ally. They're claiming that Wagner forces are trying to destabilize NATO, push on Poland. And that's all good and well. We got that going on. That's interesting. But I want to know if you guys have seen this, the shit that's happening in Africa. All right, let's move continents a little bit because I believe they all tie together. Have you guys seen the stuff about the coup d'etat in Niger? This headline reads, why some people want Russia in and France out. In a sign of growing hostility towards the West since the coup in Niger, a businessman proudly shows off his outfit in the colors of the Russian flag in the traditional heartland of deposed President Mohamed Bazoum. Since the coup, there has been a war of words between the military and the West. Niger hosts a French military base and is the world's 7th biggest producer of uranium. The fuel is vital for nuclear power, with a quarter of it going to Europe, especially former colonial power France. Since General Abdulhamid Tachini, sorry.
You're just making this up as you
Yeah,
go, bro.
listen, hey,
I don't blame you. That's pretty tough.
That's my best tip.
Just keep going.
A for effort.
Yeah. So this guy,
since that guy overthrew the president in a coup on 26 July, Russian colors have suddenly appeared on the streets. Thousands took part in a protest in the capital, Niamey, on Sunday, with some waving Russian flags and even attacking the French embassy. It seems now this movement is spreading across the country. Here's a picture of that business owner. You guys they're waving the Russian flag all over. It's pretty incredible to see. Biden, we actually just evacuated our embassy in Niger. And of course, that came after the Pentagon said there's no threat. So we got all of this stuff going on. And I want to pose this question because we talk about it on the Real AF quite often. They being the elites, they have a couple of different options here, right? There's World War III. There's another pandemic possibly being released. Climate lockdowns, right? They have a few different options. And all of these disastrous headlines from the coup in Niger, they're all popping up. And to no surprise, COVID hospitalizations are on the rise again. Politico put it out. What's the new COVID-19 surge? My question is, do you guys think like these are really just temperature checks, right? They're trying to see what the public's going to react the most to, and then maybe that's how they make their decision. What do you guys think on this?
You're meaning from an aspect of like test marketing.
Correct.
Like,
we are
more
their
scared.
focus group.
Are they more likely to react to COVID-19? Are they more likely to react to
World War III? Exactly. Is that what you got? I mean, what do we got? What we got?
I don't know. I don't know that all those are related. I think you might have.
Yeah, I would put those in two different buckets. The first one, what's happening in Europe right now is incredibly dangerous because, so I'm somebody that I don't, sending $115 billion to Ukraine and we don't do anything about the southern border here in the United States is unacceptable to me.
Bro,
right?
that's treasonous in my opinion.
It's unacceptable. Yeah. And it is a very dangerous situation that's going on. And there's a lot of people, and I'm not one included, including in the Republican Party, and all the Democrats are supporting all this. And it's a blank check. We just had votes last week on the National Defense Authorization Act to just have an audit, of how that money's being spent. That got voted down.
Jeez.
And I was one of the few people that voted to have the audit. I was also one of the few people, and it's kind of a weird mix of people, Republican, Democrat, that voted for this, that said, Rand Paul had an amendment that said, before, as a NATO country, before we would ever, there's an Article 5, like a Russia invades Poland, right? Before we would actually go to war, Congress would actually have to be the ones to go to war, declare war, like in the Constitution. There are like 12 of us that voted for that. So there is this, I think people are really invested in this thing, and it's clouding the vision, because the real threat, and I'm telling you, I'm on the Armed Services Committee, you get these classified briefings. I'm not going to obviously divulge anything there, but China is the real threat. Like, Russia is proving itself. It's not that what's happening over there isn't real, but it's a third-rate military at this point, right? Russia, Ukraine, there's got to be a way to sort of figure this thing out. But China, man, they have built islands in the South China Sea. They are fully weaponized with anti-aircraft, anti-missile systems. They have hypersonics that can potentially take out aircraft carriers. They have a bigger Navy than we have. We have 4 naval shipyards. They have 12. Each one of them has greater capacity than all of ours combined. They're playing in space. They view themselves as the last 150, 200 years has been a blip historically. They're a thousands of year old kind of civilization. America's new. They're betting against us that we can't hold on, that the last 80 years has been an accident of history, and they are hell-bent on world domination. That's the truth. And so there has been this focus now more on China, but I think a lot of what's going on over there, that is not America's biggest threat. It is China. And, they're playing with fire over there right now. And if you get into this NATO conflict, that is World War III. And I don't want to see that. And there's a way to diffuse it. Some people don't want to engage in that, I don't think, which is wrong.
What's your take on because my theory is this, dude, and I'm definitely not privy to any information. This is just me watching what's going on, what I think is going on. And when I see the president of the United States being shown to have taken money from foreign interests to make policy decisions about foreign interests, and the probe, which is, as you know, a probe is just the beginning of what's actually going on. And we see these connections that he has to China and the things that have been going on. And then we see the decision about the border, right? With the borders wide open. We see the printing of endless amounts of money. We see the sending of all of our military equipment and assets and all of this money to Ukraine. We see the crime in the cities going crazy. We see the propagation through the media, which China is also heavily involved in, of identity politics and division and the ability to keep America from uniting. And we look at all these things, the draining of the strategic oil reserves. I mean, we're in my opinion, at the most vulnerable that we have been in my lifetime. And I personally believe, and this is by no way am I saying that you believe this, but this is what I believe. I believe that this dude is acting in the interests of himself and not in the interests of our country, and we are being served up to be conquered.
I think he is compromised.
That's what I think too.
I think he's compromised. And the more of this stuff, it's sort of a drip, drip, drip.
Am I out of line thinking all that stuff?
No, look, and by the way, when was the last time you called your dad when you're getting ready to close a deal? Get your dad on the phone. I've never called my dad, get him on speakerphone it's all of this. It's just insane. But yeah, look, I think a lot of people try to make this way more complicated than it needs to be. If we are energy independent and dominant, half of these issues go by the wayside. There is no reason in the world why we should be depending on China for these supply chains. There's none. And
wouldn't that lend more to my theory though? Because that was the literal first thing he did when he came in on day one.
I know he did that and has done nothing about the border. I think he's sort of trying to appease his base in many ways because he thinks that, from a political perspective, it helps him to have an open border, I guess. It's like there have been, Missouri has 6 million people in the whole state, right? 6.2 million. There have been over 7 million people we know of that have come here illegally just in the last 2.5 years. Think about that.
And by the way, we don't know who they are.
We don't know who they are.
We don't even.
We don't know where they're at, by the way.
We don't know where they come from. We don't know what, a lot of these are military age males from different places all over the world. Like, and I see this all as intentional, right? Like, you have a different perspective because you're in it.
Yeah. So look, man, here's the truth.
There's a perspective of these guys are just idiots and they're doing shit to appease their base. Or there's a perspective of everything they're doing is intentional and they're trying to literally serve our country up to be conquered. Well,
I think that if they had their way, and this is really scary, and this isn't like I'm making this up, like they've said this is what they would do. If the House of Representatives is like it's a razor thin majority right now. Let's say that changes. If they had 52 votes maybe just 51 votes in the Senate, they've said that they will end the filibuster, right? Which means it takes 60 votes to move on something, right? Which is hard to do. And it should be for big stuff, right?
Yeah.
They would end the filibuster. They would add states to the union. They would pack the Supreme Court, and you'd have open borders and amnesty. You'd federalize elections too. They've said they'd do that. So if you think about that, like how we're teetering, that's why when you said this earlier about Democrats, man, I grew up in, like I said, blue collar neighborhood. Most of my friends' parents are Democrats. There's a lot. I have friends who are Democrats. Like that's not the thing.
Yeah.
But this isn't that. This is a radical view that has somehow infected like where the movement on the other side is. And it's really dangerous. And they're not that far away from, again, let's say you go from 9 to, they want to go to 13. Well, why not 26?
Yeah.
After that, why not 50?
Yeah.
Why not 100? And then you go down this like Banana Republic road, and it's dangerous stuff, man. And we're not having the same debates that we had like 30 years ago, where it's like, sort of fiscal policy or what's the best tax rate. I mean, they want to fundamentally change the country forever, and we just can't let them do it.
Yeah.
And that's why you got to be in this. And we talked about earlier, the cavalry's not coming, man. It means I'm going to do everything I can do, but it also means like, man, run for school board or show up for something that's important. Be engaged. That's the only way we're going to change. And we can do it.
Yeah.
We can do
First off, use your voice.
Yeah.
Second off, get engaged. Third off, live to a standard that represents what you believe America to be.
Yep.
Those three things will make all the difference in the world.
Yeah. So that's where we're at. And so that's dangerous. But I think the second bucket on the COVID-19, I think they know there's been this severe backlash, and people see that headline. Nobody's buying that.
Yeah.
BS right now. Nobody.
Yeah.
But hey, what if we tell everybody it's the hottest day in the history of the world? You know what I mean? Like maybe they get away. Maybe they think that's going to move people. So I do think that this is, and to take a step back, this is all about, man. So my other passion on the free speech is
it's so stupid. Like,
I'm laughing at the hottest day of the history of the world.
Saying.
It's like, and Miss Omar, how long have we been tracking this data?
Exactly.
She's like 17 million years. Well, who the fuck was tracking it, lady?
It's a fucking caveman came
out.
Meanwhile, we didn't have indoor plumbing then. Like you're telling me we knew how hot the hottest day was.
Listen, lady, I don't know where you come from, but you know what we call this around here? It's called summertime.
Right. It's called July.
Yeah. That's right. So, but it's like the other thing happening is it's this administrative state, and we got to bust that up. Like when the founders, if you think about it, they wanted to spread out power, right? Because they didn't want people to infringe on, it was all to protect liberty. So you had checks and balances, separation of powers, and federalism. States created the federal government, only agreed upon to do certain things, all these protections. But the way around that is if you have a bunch of people who are making big decisions that aren't accountable to anybody. And that's what we got. Like the deputy undersecretary of the EPA, who the hell is that?
Yeah.
But man, if they send you a cease and desist letter or a guidance letter, your farming operation might be over, generationally over. And so we got to get back to a place, man, where Congress is having a vote on this stuff, because all this bullshit wouldn't actually be happening.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be happening because nobody would vote for that.
Yeah.
So that's another big fight that's longer term. But you see it, like COVID, like we said, was the playbook.
I think another important thing that I would like to see addressed, I think is important for our republic, is that we can't hide bills within the bill.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We can't have these 4,000 page bills that get introduced at midnight, right? that have, they're called the Anti-Inflation Act, when everything in there,
Anti-Racism Act.
yeah, and everything in there is designed to create inflation.
Yeah.
Like that's a big deal, man.
Yep, I agree. And what most people probably don't know, I didn't know until I got there. Man, when they do these omnibus bills, that's hundreds, if not thousands of pages, a bunch of stuff that's not related to anything. Like you got to have 13 appropriation bills that fund different things and let people vote yes or no or offer amendments and change things. Like you think that's actually what happens up there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. And it empowers a few people, just a few people who are in leadership. And so I think there's a movement to try to pull that back. And so that, that your senator from Utah or Missouri has a say in this stuff. And it's not just a few people getting together in a back room deciding all this stuff. So
can I actually, just for my sense, how exactly does a bill turn into an omnibus bill? Like, what's that process like? Is it like, okay, hey, Eric, we need your vote on this, main bill, and you say, okay, cool, but I need to throw these initiatives in this bill. Is that kind of, and then
so if you
pass it around to 500 people,
right? The way it should work is like this. Let's just take the bill, the Censorship Accountability Act.
Mm-hmm.
Like run that bill. Now what happens is then people put a bunch of stuff on it, whatever, and it stays on. That's one thing. But what happens is we're supposed to pass a budget essentially in the next couple of months. And what if you can't what if Schumer doesn't put it on the floor or something like that, right? Then what happens? They say, well, we got to fund the government. So we didn't do it the way we're supposed to do it. So now we got to put together all this stuff. And it's a yes or no thing. Man, I voted against raising the debt ceiling because they had a bunch of stuff in there that didn't get to the real problem.
Yeah.
And then when they say in the debt ceiling thing, like, oh, well, wait till it's time to do the budget bills. And when you get the budget bills, like, well, we got to do this because we got to fund the government. So it's this institutional way of getting people to go along with a bunch of stuff they don't really support. And I'm just, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
And I think there's a group of people coming in now that are some of it's generational, right? Like I'm 48. The average age in the Senate is 67 years old.
Yeah.
And there's some newer folks that are coming in that have a different view. I work with anybody, but I think you just got to have accountability, right? Like make us vote on stuff. They can be hard votes, but then that's fine. Like, and people are going to agree with it or disagree with it, but at least people know where you stand.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that I didn't know when I got up there. That's one of the things you really got to work on. So,
well, guys, that was headline number 2. Chime in the comments. Hashtag World War III. Let us know where you stand on that. That being said, let's get on to our third and final headline. Headline number 3. Got to talk about it. Headline number 3 reads, Donald Trump to appear in D.C. court Thursday on January 6th indictment. It's talk of the town. Everybody's on it. So former President Donald Trump is set to make his first appearance in federal court in Washington, D.C. on Thursday. That's the day when we were recording the show. In special counsel Jack Smith's prosecution of January 6th. Trump was indicted by a Washington, D.C. grand jury on Tuesday on 4 counts, including conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction, an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights in relation to the January 6th Capitol riots. Trump is set to appear in the E. Barrett Prettyman Federal Courthouse at 4 p.m. U.S. Secret Service announced there, quote, may be short-term traffic implications arising from Trump's court appearance. A statement from Anthony Gleamy. He said, quote, while the Secret Service does not comment on specific protective means or methods, we have the utmost confidence in the dedication and commitment to security shared by all of our law enforcement and government partners. We are working closely with the Metropolitan Police Department, U.S. Marshal Service, U.S. Park Police, U.S. Capitol Police, and the Federal Protective Service to ensure the highest levels of safety and security for the former president while minimizing disruptions to the normal court process. Now, Smith's latest indictment marks the former president's 3rd indictment in 6 months. In March, the Manhattan District Attorney charged Trump with 34 counts of falsifying business records. In June, Smith charged Trump with 37 counts over his handling of White House documents. However, Smith charged Trump with new counts in the White House documents case last week. Trump's arraignment on Smith's superseding indictment is set for August 10th at Florida Federal Courthouse. Now, in the January 6th case, U.S. Magistrate Judge Maxilla Upadaway will handle Thursday's hearing, but Judge Tanya Chutkan will preside over the remainder of the case. Now, Chutkan was appointed to the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia in 2014 by former President Barack Obama. Chutkan donated to Obama's campaign multiple times and is well known for handing out some of the harshest sentences for January 6 defendants, as Breitbart News reported. Smith announced he will seek a quote-unquote speedy trial in the January 6 case against Trump to ensure the Department of Justice, quote-unquote, evidence can be tested out in court and judged by a jury of citizens. Now, I want to bring up this screenshot. This is an image that has been circulating throughout social media. And it's basically this
I'm glad you put this up.
This timeline. Okay. And I want to kind of just go through this and then you guys tell me what you see. Okay. So it says June 7th, FBI releases documents to Congress alleging the Bidens took a $10 million bribe from Burisma. On June 8th, the very next day, Jack Smith indicts Trump in Mar-a-Lago documents case. Okay. On July 26th, Hunter Biden goes to court and rejects sweetheart plea deal after it was revealed DOJ tried to give him blanket immunity from future prosecutions. Then the very next day, on July 27th, Jack Smith adds more charges for Trump in the Mar-a-Lago case. On July 31st, Hunter Biden's former business partner testifies to Congress that Joe Biden was on over 20 calls with his son's business partners and that Burisma execs pressured them to fire the prosecutor. The very next day, August 1st, Jack Smith indicts Trump again for January 6th. What do you guys see? I mean, this is no bias. These are just timeline dates. What are we seeing?
I'm sure it's just a coincidence.
Yeah, dude, of course.
I mean,
this is definitely not
attention.
planned out. They don't know that, all this information is coming out. And while they know this information is starting to be formulated and coming out, they're surely not building this case against Trump to have something to hit with the media immediately after. I mean, they wouldn't do that. There's no
prosecutorial misconduct.
Joe Biden's a sweet old man. He just loves his son, dude.
Yeah, he just forgets his favorite ice cream sometimes.
Yeah, he just, shits his pants in front of the Pope.
Yeah,
That's
Parmesan cheese.
Yeah. So yeah, this is clearly corrupt.
Yeah.
And it doesn't and it shouldn't matter what you think of Donald Trump at all. And going back to what we were talking about just a few minutes ago, actually indicting a former president such in the way that they had is opening up. It's fundamentally changing the country. People, and that's the point people don't realize.
It's setting a precedent.
Like you're putting this on the table now for every single regime to ever come in, whether it be right or left. And I'm going to tell you guys, the conservative people are going to get their place back in the White House. And now you Democrats, your people, the people you voted for, that because you hated this dude's tweets so bad and you hated his great economy and you hated all the other shit that was awesome when he was in power, because you don't like this guy, now they've created a precedent where the next time your people lose power, you guys could all be indicted. Like, this is bad shit. And this is not what America's about. And it's not a Donald Trump thing. This, to me, this scares the fuck out of me. This, in my opinion, is the mask of communism coming off, saying there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Mm.
That's what I see.
Yeah, no, this is a, I mean, you said it. This is a really dangerous road to go down, man. This is third world banana republic stuff, right? And so all the things, what's ironic about all this is all the people who were hysterical when Trump got elected in 2016, all the things they claimed he was going to do, right? Like, this administration, the Biden administration,
they're doing
it all.
Yes.
And think about this. They're
going to start World War III with China.
Right. Censoring Americans on the verge of, potentially World War III, protecting your kids from prosecution, jailing political opponents. I mean, if you would have 10 years ago read this stuff, you would have thought it was like some third world country.
Yeah.
And they're perfectly willing to do this, which is dangerous. It's scary. And like you said, whether you voted for Trump or you like Trump or don't like Trump, man, this is a different deal. It's completely unprecedented. And you see two tiers of justice here, one for Trump. And by the way, they've got one of these indictments is for the documents at Mar-a-Lago. Hillary Clinton literally had her staff when it was under subpoena, take baseball bats to cell phones and bleach hard drives.
Right? She had them make up a document that said that this man was colluding with Russia. They made it up, and for 7 years have rubbed it in our faces.
Can you imagine, Andy, if, because the Russia thing was a total hoax, right? Total hoax, made up. Obama gave the green light. Hillary Clinton's team was in charge. Can you imagine if Trump, when he was president, had the Department of Justice arrest Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and try to put them in jail for the rest of their lives? Can you imagine the reaction? Like, and so we're supposed to just sort of like accept this. It's
isn't
crazy.
That the problem?
Yes.
Isn't the problem is there isn't the appropriate reaction? I mean, like, dude, like it's like at some point in time, look, man, and I'm just speaking frankly, all right? At some point in time, violence is going to have to come on the table as a reality to resolve this situation. Because if we had this situation happen 20, 30, 40 years ago, these people would be arrested. The military would have arrested these people for what they're doing. And dude, in my opinion, and I know this is true, and because I'm on every fucking watch list there is, I don't give a shit.
He's probably seen the list.
Yeah. Dude, the fucking every single veteran in this country, every single like true red-blooded patriot American that's watched Braveheart a few times is like, is it time?
Right.
Like, I don't think they realize what, or maybe they do. Maybe that's what they're trying to incite. Maybe they're trying to incite a situation where people rise up and they crush them and then remove the resistance that way.
I think, look, we can't justify political violence. I think that we have to be the good guys on this thing, man.
But dude, that's getting us crushed.
No, but we got to fight back. There's no doubt about it, right? Like this cannot, to your point, man, there's no end to this. There's no, if this is the way that we go down, right, then we are not who we say we are, right? Which is which again, we talked about earlier, like this pressure release valve, man. People have to feel like they can vote for a candidate they want to vote for. They can say what they want to say. But when you start criminalizing politics or speech, people are going to get really frustrated with that. And I just think this timeline, man. And by the way, the other thing that people don't talk about is Jack Smith in 2014, when this stuff started, was the head of the DOJ's like anti-corruption stuff. So like Jack Smith, like when these payments are coming in and there's all these shell corporations, wires coming in.
He knows about it.
He's in there, man. Like he's in there. And so they had that ridiculous January 6th committee and they got their guy to go do their bidding now, which is, this is a political prosecution, man. It's a disaster. I don't know what else to say. It's like,
but bro, that my point is, like, I'm not trying to put you in an uncomfortable position, but like real talk, like we've been sitting here and we know all the conservatives and we know the politicians, the Matt Gaetzes and you and Holly and all these guys, or Rand Paul, and we could name 50 other people, push back on this shit, but it's still happening.
Yeah.
And at what level, like, are we going to allow him? Are we going to allow these people to execute Donald Trump to make a point?
Right.
Like,
So that's floating around. They're saying
that's
like
what I'm
death
saying.
penalty
So
and
one of the
fucking-
things that I think is like, so I'm supporting Trump. I was one of the first people to endorse him in 2024. And by the way, this thing isn't about 2020. It's about 2024. This is about
100%.
not allowing Americans to vote for their preferred presidential candidate because they hate this guy so much.
I talked to my friend, one of my really smart friends that you might know him, Mike Glover. Mike Glover has been on the show a couple different times. We were talking yesterday on the phone, and he lifted up a point that I hadn't thought of yet. But he told me that there's 5 or 6 key states where if he's under indictment for these crimes, they can actually remove him off the ballot so that he cannot win the election no matter what.
Yeah, that's, man, like it's going to come down, the election will come down to like 5 states. I don't know what those are, but it's going to come down to 5
he said
states.
Arizona, Nevada. It's the 5 that are all in question.
And we have to make sure then, and like I said, people make their own decisions, but come out and vote. I think Trump's going to be the nominee. I'm supporting him. And one of the main reasons I'm supporting him, first of all, I didn't get us any foreign wars. That's a big one. And 2, man, we had a great economy. And 3, I think if he gets back in there, he can only serve 1 term, right? He has 4 years. He is going to totally dismantle this administrative state in a way that we have never seen, because we've seen the underbelly of this thing, man, and it is ugly and it is nasty and it is about power and control. And I think if you get him in there, man, he's going to be the ultimate disruptor, and people aren't going to like it. And that mainstream media, they're going to lose their minds. But that's what we need right now. We need somebody to come in and just totally shake this thing up. So, I think all this stuff is also meant to be a distraction, because they're trying to just like have a count of how many indictments and how many times he was impeached. I think this strengthens him, though. Like, my gut is like,
dude, listen, I see it the same way you see it. Like, there's all these people in conservative land and America land that are like, well, what about DeSantis, or what about this, or what about that? Look, dude, they tell you who to vote for by who they attack. All right. You just watched the New York Post attack me for telling people to drink water. Like, dude, listen, People Magazine, the Post, fucking Inside, all these motherfuckers come at me for telling people to be fit, healthy, independent, strong, wealthy human beings. Why do they attack that? Well, they attack that because that is the way that you answer their suppression of us as citizens. You become the opposite of what they want. If they want you unhealthy, you become healthy. If they want you hateful, you become someone that doesn't hate. If they want you poor, become wealthy. If they want you sick, become healthy. It's the opposite. And so the reason that they attack Trump is the same reason they attack me for this littler stuff. They attack this dude because they understand that he's the fucking sledgehammer that will bring their entire operation of corruption to the fucking ground.
100%.
Yeah, but that leads to the question, though, right? And it's the golden question. We know that. They know that, right? And so it's
we don't know that. We have people on the ground all over the world right now and in social media arguing for Ron DeSantis or whatever, bro. Look, dude, Ron DeSantis is probably a cool dude. I don't know him. He's done a pretty good job. And like, Trump doesn't do himself any favors by attacking him. Like, bro, you need an advisor like me on your fucking payroll, bro. Real talk. Because he goes out and attacks DeSantis, and DeSantis did great shit during COVID, and it makes him look stupid. Like, stop doing that. You're hurting your cause. And so we have all these people supporting these other people, and it's like, bro, like, the media is all behind DeSantis. Like, they understand, the media understands that people are not voting Democrat in 2024. So what are they trying to do? They're trying to position DeSantis as the candidate. Fox is doing it. MSNBC is doing it. CNN is doing it. Now, why would they want DeSantis and not want Trump? That should be that only question that you should have to ask, because with the amount of corruption that we have, and like you said, the underbelly that's been exposed, and we understand the ins and outs of how corrupt this shit is, why would you even think that anyone else should be the person?
And here's the thing, man, you touched on this too, is that it's easy for people, I think, to lose hope, right, in these kinds of situations. But here's the truth. We are one election away from fixing, I don't want to say all of it, but taking a sledgehammer, because if they keep the House and, one vote, and West Virginia's up, Ohio's up, and Montana's up, we should win all three of those states. So Republicans would take the majority in the Senate. And you get Donald Trump in the office, man, you're cooking with gas, and you start to fix all of these, everything we've talked about on this show, man, everything and more. We could spend 3 hours doing this thing, right?
For sure.
You get in there, and man, you just start to, you take this stuff one by one and go do it. And that's the thing, like that is the thing, but we can't keep doing the same stuff we've always been doing. We can't just sort of go along with this stuff, because think about the administrative state, man. It's gotten so much bigger the last 80 years, no matter who's been in office, right? And so I think Trump is the ultimate disruptor in this election cycle. And that's why I'm supporting him. But it's going to take people, look, half the country sometimes doesn't vote, right? Half the country doesn't come out to the polls.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. We have all these people saying, I'm just not going to vote this time. Bro, you have to vote.
Yeah.
You have to vote. You have to vote for who you think is the best. Whether they're exactly what you want or 50% of what you want, you got to vote for what the best option you think is.
Yeah, which, like, and that's the scary part too, right? Because, like, dude, they're talking about, like,
but, like, dude, hold on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the vote. Okay, there's a whole big section of America now, Eric, that fucking believes that the vote doesn't count.
I know.
And so like, in our Constitution, does it not say that we have a duty to protect the America from all enemies, foreign and domestic? Doesn't it say that we have a duty as citizens to overthrow the government if they go the route that this is going? Like, at what point in time are we supposed to say, okay, well, this is the time? Like, what I'm trying to figure out is when do we fuck these people up?
Real
Because
shit.
real shit.
Yeah.
Because I've been on this show for three and a half years talking about what we can do culturally, right? Like we could build ourselves into personally excellent humans. We can get engaged, like you said. We can live to a higher standard. We can be the opposite of what they want. We can lift our neighbors up to our left and our right. We can stop hating each other over identity politics. We can come together. We can unite. That's still not going to give us the power. That's going to give us the culture to support the power if the power structure is intact, which the power structure seems to not be intact right now.
But
so I'm getting nervous. I'm like,
listen, here's what I think people miss, but you got right. Is politics, man, is downstream from culture.
Yes.
It is a reflection of culture. It's downstream. It happens afterwards, right? So if we fix, and this is why I think, you're very uniquely situated. What you guys are doing is got it right. Like, it's not just about like the votes or all that stuff. It's about this mentality of what do we believe in, right? Like start there. What do you believe in? And what are you willing to get engaged to fight for? And if you believe that America, and I believe this, when the founders started this country, like nobody believed in individual rights.
Yeah.
They thought your rights came from a king or a queen. And they said, nope, everybody's born with this stuff, right? And we're going to with the right to, pursue happiness. Like whatever your version of happiness is, and government's only job is to protect those rights, not infringe upon those rights. So if we start there, right? And then people are engaged in their community, living a good life, they're taking care of their family, they're helping their neighbor, all that stuff. We win. Now, the way
we have to be America before America is America. That's what it works out to be.
We got to make America great again.
Well, but we as individuals have to live that.
Yes.
Like the things that you and I love about America, which are the same things, by the way.
Yep.
We grew up 15 minutes away from each other, went to the same kind of high school. Like these things that we love about America, man. Like you have to live those things as an individual for that to exist. And I don't think people understand that.
People have to, I think they got to see, they see you and they say, so what is it about that guy that makes him, and that's how you begin the conversation. It's not by talking down to people and like that, or they got to see you live it. And you also, like, we can't accept that, we're talking about a presidential race, right? We also cannot accept that we would teach our kids in grade school to hate America. Like, we can't accept that anymore. Like, we can't accept the idea that you're going to divide students and have privilege walks at Wentzville. Like, we just can't accept that anymore.
None of it, dude.
So, and I think that if there was anything that came from COVID worthwhile, it was this realization of what was going on in schools and culturally, like what our kids are being exposed to, because all the cultural winds are coming at us, right? You got Hollywood, the universities, you got these CRT people, you got DEI, all this stuff, but they can only advance as far as we let them. And that means people standing up in their communities and fighting back and finding people of like mind and going doing something, right? It's being engaged. And so I think your podcast, man, the stuff that you're doing is a great avenue for people to do it because they see it, and it actually does matter. Like, it does matter. It's the only thing that's going to save us, honestly. So.
I just think on top of that, man, it's just like, dude, I think.
Well, no, it's not the only thing, bro. It's going to have, like, these dudes that I just mentioned, besides you, these guys are going to have to get aggressive. Like, they're going to have to get, like, you've been aggressive. Like, I said this on the show before you came on. Like, I'm super proud of, like, I've said this on other shows you may not have heard, but I'm super fucking proud that I supported you in the campaign. Like, when I see what you do, it makes me proud. I said, okay, that was the right move. We did the right thing. Yeah. We've got a guy in there that's actually fighting. You can't say that about many people up there, dude. A lot of these people are they're sitting on a cold seat when they should be standing up.
Yeah.
And they should be talking, and they should be executing, and they should be making changes. Because the constant thing, the real demoralization that's happening in America right now amongst the street level citizens is this: nothing's going to happen.
Right.
Nothing's going to happen. We see this stuff happening, and they're not going to do anything about it. Bro, there's pictures of Joe Biden's son doing cocaine, putting Skittles on his wiener, like with all kinds of hose and like all this shit all over the internet, bro. And this guy's taking money, and they're making decisions to get, and like, dude, this is, people see it, and then they don't see anything happen, and they're like, well, this is bullshit.
Right.
And so like that blow off valve, and I know this because I'm in the conversation. If these guys don't do the work's going to get done one way or the other.
Well, we got to get the right people in too, right? It's not just about, and so, yeah, like, and somebody like me, you can't get there without people helping out either, right?
Yeah.
So it's this thing of, I think, finding the right people, but also it's not just about the people you elect, man. It's about what you do in your daily life.
I mean, think about this, dude. Like you're a regular guy. Like you're a senator, but you're a regular guy.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a regular guy. Look at this fucking guy. Okay. Let's just look at him. He's 1,000 years old. He looks like the crypt keeper from
Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah. From when Indiana Jones went searching in the last crusade and they found the cup of Jesus Christ. And there was this old man.
The old knight.
Yes.
The old knight.
You have woke chosen, up, it's 1,000 years old and he can't stand up. And he's that's Joe Biden.
You have chosen wisely.
Yes. He chose poorly. Right. This is the guy that chose poorly. Like if you watch that movie, there's the Nazi army that goes in and they look at all the cups and the Nazi general picks this like cup that's encrusted with jewels and it's the most beautiful cup. And he's like, this is definitely the cup of Jesus Christ. And he takes a drink. And if you take a drink from the wrong cup, which is supposed to be the cup of life, it kills you. All right. You age immediately. And in the movie, the guy starts to age. And if you play that part in slow motion, okay, Joe Biden actually played that character.
He was in the credits. Yeah.
Bro, I want a side by side. Like we're going to side by side this shit. Okay. So he find the clip, bro. We got to throw it up there. So the point is, this is the oldest. These people are the oldest. Like think of our grandpas. Like think of our grandpas. Like my grandparents are dead.
Yep.
But before they died, they were close to dead. Right. And we had to take care of them and we had to walk them around and we had to, like, grandpa would say some crazy shit. And we were like, yeah, that's just grandpa. Like, right. Like, but this is not just Joe Biden. This is,
but he didn't have your grandpa didn't have his finger on the nuclear code.
Yeah. Dude. If my grandma would have had it, she would have nuked everybody, bro. She hated everybody. So, but the point is we have all these super old people who are calling the plays for all of us. And we have very few young people like you or like me or like some of these other people that are like even resisting it all. And like, dude, it would make no sense for us to allow, like, bro, if you and I, let's just break this down. You and I are going to start a company. We're going to go find the oldest, most mentally handicapped person we can to be the CEO. Like that's a losing strategy. Right. And we have that right now. No, that's not the right one, dude.
Yeah, it's from Indiana Jones and
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Oh, final scene.
When he goes into the thing. But
so are you saying the knight or you're saying the guy as he ages?
I'm saying the guy as he ages.
Yeah,
he looks just like him. No. Because you know how Joe Biden's hair is like at the end.
I know that movie well. Yeah, there you go.
You know how his hair gets like straight off the back of his head? Yeah. Bro, that's a great movie.
You got to go. So that's when he's saving his dad.
There he is.
Yeah, there it is.
That's him. That's Joe Biden. But like a few frames before that. So like if you see that clip, he starts as a normal human and then starts to age. Yeah. So if you just reverse it back like a few frames, it'll be Joe Biden. I'm confident. I remember I've seen the movie 1,000 times.
I know, me too.
Yeah. It's one of the last great real action movies where they actually went and filmed it.
Yeah, it was like a movie you had fun watching.
Yeah. But like, dude, lectured to. We have the weakest, oldest, most corrupt people calling the plays for our future, man.
Yep.
Like, we wouldn't allow this in any other situation, and we're allowing it with the president of the United States.
Well, I mean, I want you to go back and remember one of the stories of COVID that nobody really talks about is Bernie Sanders, who's also super old. Bernie Sanders was going to win their primary.
Yeah, and they cheated.
And then they were like, well, we can't let that happen. Yeah. So Obama cuts his deal. Kamala Harris gets on the ticket and like he wins South Carolina. And then there's a couple other ones. Like then everything like shuts down. If think about it, if COVID would have happened like 3 weeks earlier or something or whatever, Bernie Sanders would have been the nominee. I mean, and so they put Biden up there as thinking he was the most like whatever appealing because he was going to be some moderate or something. That is not who that guy is, man. He is whoever's pulling the strings behind the scenes.
Oh, he's for sale.
These are radical leftists, man. And all the stuff we've been talking about today is because we have an administration that's just like, on hyper speed on the wrong way. So
Yeah.
ludicrous speed, like in Spaceballs. Like
Yeah, no
ludicrous
shit,
speed.
dude. I see your Schwartz is as big as mine. Spaceballs.
Yeah.
You know, I know you're old.
Yeah, half your audience does
You know
not
the
know.
same fucking movies I know.
I know,
That's how
yeah, I know.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, guys, that was our third and final headline. It is time now for our final segment of the show. As always, thumbs up or dumb as fuck. That's when we bring a headline up, we go through it, talk about it, it'll get one of those two options. So with that being said, our thumbs up or dumb as fuck headline reads, Georgia police officer gives boy PS5 after receiving a call to take him away.
Take the kid away?
Kid away?
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, well, let's dive into it. So a Georgia boy was giving an unexpected gift by a Hatfield police officer after someone reported him for trying to find work around the neighborhood. The boy in a suburb.
Wait.
Yeah.
Someone reported him for trying to find work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the boy in a suburb just south of Atlanta intended to do yard work such as pulling weeds, cutting grass, trimming hedges for neighbors. His goal was to save up money to purchase a PlayStation. A nearby resident contacted police regarding the kid intended to have him taken away. Officer Colloran of the Hatfield Police Department arrived to speak with the boy, who expressed his desire to earn money to purchase a gaming system. Quote, the young man was polite, respectful, and truthful, Officer Colloran shared. Here is the video of their interaction.
Oh man, that's cool.
That's awesome.
It's
Yeah.
pretty cool, yeah. So Colloran shared that he too is a passionate gamer and offered to assist the boy in achieving his goal. The officer coordinated with his department to present the boy with the PlayStation 5 and an online gaming gift card. The two plan to continue their friendship online, where they will band together in the gaming world. What do we got on this, guys?
I mean, I think that's amazing.
I mean, it's obvious.
Yeah,
Look
that's
at
a
me.
thumbs up, man.
Yeah.
The headline was misleading, though.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the headline. But yeah, that's an awesome story.
Dude, this is the truth.
Yeah, and this is what really happens,
Yes.
right? Yeah,
This is the truth about police officers, man. Like police officers are, and dude, it bothers me because the Democrats hate the police. The libertarians, you say anything nice about the police, you're a bootlicker or some shit. It's like, bro, these are people who are paid very little relative money to serve our communities at a very dangerous job where most of the calls they go on are dealing with people who are drunk or drugged up or misaligned some way that we don't want to deal with. We don't want to deal with those people. And they consistently do amazing things like this in the community. And it never gets talked about. What's it gets talked about? Oh, the cops shot a criminal. The dude was a criminal.
Yeah.
Like, we shoot criminals here, bro.
We should.
Like, this is America.
When I was AG, somebody was asking me a question like, what's the thing that keeps you, up at night? And my answer was all the men and women that'll never go into law enforcement now, that we'll never know who they are because of all the stuff the media pushes about what they do. And we need the sheepdogs, right? We need people who are willing to stand up for their community. And this is like a great example of what they really do.
Dude, remember when you and I were growing up, bro? And like police officer was like a thing you wanted to be.
Yeah.
I want to be a police
Firefighter.
officer. I want to be
Yep.
a firefighter.
Yep.
Like that was like, you wanted to be a police officer, It's what do you think of this? I mean, this is obviously an amazing story, but while we're on the topic, what do you think about like shrinking the government massively and reallocation of funding?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Towards things like police officers getting paid a reasonable salary and attracting a higher level of human beings to do this incredibly dangerous and stressful work.
100%.
Really?
In fact, yeah. And what we ought to be doing more of is the federal government ought to be block granting more money to states to do stuff that works in their own communities, right?
Mhm.
Recruitment, pay well, pay police officers better, pay firefighters more, pay teachers more, like the stuff that we know has a lot of value, right? And but that gets lost, right? We spend all this money on like, I'll give you a perfect example. We have people calling our office all the time now for passports. Like, if you're traveling, a lot of people are traveling now, it's really hard. Like, the delays are like a couple months. We've had over 500 people call the office. That's just people who actually picked up the phone, who just didn't give up and say they can't get a passport. Come to find out, we're investigating this. The State Department is spending, tens of millions of dollars. I think it's $30 million on DEI trainings in foreign countries, right? Like, just think of all the money.
How many of these countries are taxing their citizens and sending the money to us?
They're not. We are, and so, like, it's that kind of stuff. And, a lot of people up there, I mean, like $30 million is a lot of money.
You do a lot with $30 million.
This cop, what he's worth.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a misalignment of priorities. And I think some people just think it's just like this bottomless pit and, what are you ever going to do? Well, how about starting there? How about making sure people get their passports instead of DEI trainings in France?
Do you think that we can recover from the level of like misappropriated funds and overtaxation that our government is doing to our citizens right now?
I do, but it's going to take, like I said, it's going to take some real structural kind of reform, right? Because
what's the chances of getting these guys, like, bro, you're an attorney. You know how the attorneys work. I'm going to sue this guy. And then you start talking, you guys go to dinner, you go to golf, and then it's like, we can get them to do all this shit. Like how do you get attorneys to vote for something that's not in their own personal interest?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, because a lot of people they'll spend money up there because they think it's, but that's, again, man, what I told people when I was running was, look, I'm going to make us, I want us to be energy dominant. I want to, control the spending, cut the spending. I want to dismantle the administrative state. I want to take on big tech. Like, that's how I'm wired.
And you're doing every single one of those things.
You got to have people who are actually like people have to be responsive to what people want. And anyway, so.
Well, brother, look, man, again, dude, first of all, thanks for coming in and giving us the time.
Yeah.
And more importantly, thanks for doing what you're doing. Because if it wasn't for you, like, real talk, bro, I'd have very little hope, very little. And I don't see very many people doing what you're doing, if any. And it just gives me, like, I'm less optimistic than you are, but the fact that you're up there doing it, it makes me like pause for a second and say, okay, let these guys do their work. So it's just very much appreciated, bro. And I don't know that I know you don't get the credit that you deserve for what you're doing.
Well, listen, man, I appreciate that. And you guys, thank you for what you do. Like, you're the number of downloads. And so, like, anytime you're, liking something on Instagram that I'm doing or Twitter or Facebook, all that stuff, we just got to come together and fight for the things that we believe in and make it work. But you guys are on the front lines too, in a different form, but it's going to take all of us together. So thanks for what you guys do.
And I think, well, dude, thank you, man. But like, I think what you just said, it takes all of us together, is the point that we should really hit on at the end of this show. Like, you're a Republican senator, but by no means are you some far right crazy, like, we're like reasonable dudes from like 2005, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like I want everybody who's common sense to like let go of these political titles, man. Let go of these affiliations that you've had in the past. Assess the situation for what it is right now and work together to solve it. Because, dude, America is the best place in the world simply because we have been the only experiment of a country that's ever existed where people from all different cultures, all different religions, all different walks of life, all different levels of melanin in our skin, or whatever other differences, have been able to come together and create the most free country that's ever existed in the history of humanity. And yes, there's a lot to complain about. Yes, I don't agree with everything that everybody says on the right or the left. We all have our own opinions. But bro, if we want to have anything that resembles what you and I love and what you love as America, and what I think all of you guys love as America, we are going to have to get over the intentional division that these people put on us day in and day out and work together to solve some of these problems. And so, and I know that's what you stand for as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so do the people that, the millions of people who listen to you every week.
Yeah.
That's what they believe too.
Yeah.
And so I think that we can do this.
Yeah, I think so too, man.
Yep.
Well, brother, I appreciate you.
Hey, you too.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Sweet.
All right, guys. Well, that's the show. Don't be a hoe.
Share the show.